Now, it was advertised as a mammoth demonstration that will send the most audible message to government that it needs to sit up and address the concerns of Ghanaians. More than 8 interest groups joined the coalition of social justice on Tuesday to walk the streets of Accra, pouring their hearts out, demanding better standards of living. JoyNews' Joseph Akable joined the protesters and filed this report.
Hundreds of protesters converged at the KUM interchange at about 9 a.m. on Tuesday, accusing government of running down the economy and making life unbearable for Ghanaians. Headquarters, popularly called Kaya, abandoned the markets and joined in the march. As they made their way through town, they sang, danced, and demanded a new deal from government.
The guys are at home. Banks are being collapsed. Somebody committed suicide the last time. Our monies are locked up. Where is Ejabin? Men's Gold.
And I'm the president of Coalition of Concerned Youth of Ghana. We are here to let Ghana understand that we are concerned citizens. No matter what Nana Addo will do, we want him to understand that it is very easy for you to undermine the people of your country, for you to destroy businesses that have been created. But we want him to understand that it is very difficult for him to live by the actions of those. He must face it.
We want him to free the man, release the man from this red alert that has been killed off. Let the man come out to the country, pay us our money. That is all. We have no problem. But 2020, we are ready to see him. That is all.
The leaders of the opposition NDC who joined the protest say the mass participation is confirmation of a dire need for the NDC to return to power.
That this is not a political party that is doing it. It's across board, and I'm sure that you saw the organizers moving from. You just see somebody, concerned drivers union, is wearing it. We have seen a luxury car, the latrine car, that is supposed to be a luxury car, and they're also putting it there. So it should tell you that these are the problems that people are going through.
If you look at the participants in this demonstration, it is not your usual demonstration. You see farmers are here in their numbers, Men's Gold customers are here in their numbers, people who have been sacked from the defunct banks are here in their numbers. You can even see fishermen are here with a canoe. It tells you that we are the bad economy and bad governance is affecting every sector of the economy, and that is why you see all the people here. So,
speaker after speaker demanded a better handling of the economy from government as the long walk ended at the Heart of Folk Park.
What the people of Ghana are saying is that enough is enough. Enough of the killing of our journalists.
This demonstration is not about the NDC. This demonstration is not about the MPP. This demonstration is not about the CPP, it's not about the PPP, but it is about Ghana. It is about our children. It is about generations on board.
It doesn't matter where he is. We understand he's slipped out of Ghana and he is alive. Whether he is alive, whether he is available, it doesn't matter where he is.
The person we voted for, I believe that Ghanaians, including the press, had created a positive image of him. You fell for it. You were being tricked. Ghanaians can see him better now. We know what he is.
Right, it's been a day now since the protest. So it's time for us to do some assessment. Let's ask, has anything changed? Let's speak to the organizers to determine whether they put their message across and they feel that this was a success. Sammy Gyamfi joins us. He's with the Coalition for Social Justice, and of course he's the NDC Communications Officer. Sammy, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right, so let's first of all assess the entire exercise. How do you rate it overall?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me say good afternoon to our cherished viewers across the world. Yesterday's demonstration was mammoth. It was highly successful and it was historic. It was historic for me, because of the variety of representation we saw. The Fishermen Association of Gamashi were there. For the first time, I saw all the market queens in Greater Accra. That is the Greater Accra Market Women Association. They were also represented at the demonstration. We had customers of Gold Coast Fund Management present at this demonstration. We had aggrieved customers of Men's Gold present at this demonstration. But not just that, the KIAs were there with their pants, the Concerned Drivers Union was there, and several other groups were all there. The attendance, as you've seen for yourself, was massive. The demonstration was peaceful. The police conducted themselves professionally. And so if you look at the demonstration from the standpoint of turnout, the conduct of the protesters, the conduct of the police, and the objective we set out, to achieve, I will say that yesterday's KUM and PREKO demonstration was highly successful.
Right. Now, you pointed to a number of groups that were represented who all have different grievances. So, for example, Gold Coast Fund Management, they want their money, right? And, the fishermen have their own concerns and so forth. Do you find a political line through all of these concerns? Do you find that all of these are due to some failing of the government?
Yes. There are three issues which encapsulate the grievances and the concerns of the several thousands of Ghanaians who poured on the streets of Accra to demonstrate yesterday. And these three issues are: number one, the excruciating economic hardship that Ghanaians are really under, and the insensitivity of the Akufo-Addo government. That is the first issue. The second one has to do with oppression, increasing levels of oppression under the Akufo-Addo regime. And finally, the growing levels of insecurity. And so yes, the protesters were from all walks of life, different interest groups, joined the demonstration. But if you look at their grievances, all the grievances fall under these three broad thematic, issues. Take, for example, the concerned drivers. Their grievances have to do with the worsening living condition of the driver and the Ghanaian. We are talking about the fact that in the run-up to the 2016 election, President Akufo-Addo was the only presidential candidate who sat in a trotro vehicle. The message, or what he told drivers at the time, was that they were paying too much for petrol, and that buying a gallon of petrol at a cost of 14 Ghana cedis was insensitive. It was because the government of the day was insensitive. Now, these drivers are saying that in the last 2 years, 6 months, the Akufo-Addo government has increased the cost of fuel on 22 occasions. And this is not as a result of the world market price of crude going up.
It's not the automatic adjustment system.
Mainly, but you see, the automatic adjustment formula is based on certain factors. And key among those factors is the issue of the exchange rate, the dollar rate. You understand? Because crude is an imported product. And so today, drivers, Ghanaians, are having to pay more for fuel because the dollar is trading to the cedi at about 5 cedis, 30 pesos.
If we're being technical, how much of these increases can we directly ascribe to the fluctuation of the cedi?
I can tell you that about 70 or 80% of the increment we have. Because even though the international market price of crude has gone up, you would realize that we have made more gains than we have lost. Because you see, we are a net importer of oil. If you look at the quantity of oil we produce, it has moved from 80,000 barrels of oil to 180,000 barrels of oil per day as a country. Not just that, look at the price of oil. It has gone up. And so because we export oil, we have also gained more in revenue. In 2 years, the Akufo-Addo government has raked a total of 6.8 billion from oil alone. If you add what they are projecting to rake in this year, They'll be raking in by the end of this year a total of 12.3 billion from oil revenue. That is unprecedented. You understand? So the main factor which has accounted for this high, increment in the cost of fuel is because of the ever worsening exchange rate.
Okay,
and that is a direct product of government's mismanagement of the economy.
I was hoping to get the figure so we could confirm, or otherwise you also 70 to 80% due to the currency claim. I don't have them, so we're going to sort of leave your comment open to subject to challenge if necessary. But that is the position of you and your colleagues who protested. Now, still seeking to assess the effectiveness of yesterday's activity. Do you think the message has been received and that something will change as a result of your protest?
You see, that depends on President Akufo-Addo and his government. They can choose to listen or they can choose to ignore the grievances and the concerns of the several thousands of protesters who thronged the streets of Accra to demonstrate against, like I said, hardship, oppression, and insecurity. You understand? But one thing is clear, from our standpoint as organizers of this demonstration, we have achieved our aim because we have succeeded in creating a platform through which the people of this country got an opportunity to vent their frustrations and to share their grievances and the challenges, the difficulties they are going through, for the attention of not just the government, but the public, the international community, and everybody. We are not stopping here. There will be several other demonstrations, and we will not stop until President Akufo-Addo listens, until President Akufo-Addo shows some sensitivity to our plight. We will not stop until this government sits up, realign their priorities, their spending, and address the germane concerns confronting the people of this country. So, as protesters, we are on course. The message, a clear message, has been drummed home through yesterday's press conference. That Ghanaians are not happy. We are not happy with the corruption. We are not happy with the wastage. We are not happy about the fact that the dollar is trading, to the cedi at 5 cedis 30 pesos. We are not happy because businesses are suffocating as a result of that. The profit margins of businesses have been eroded. Capital of businessmen and women eroded. Jobs are being collapsed. 347 microfinance institutions have already gone down. Over 9 banks have already gone down.
Do you ascribe that to poor decisions of the government?
Yeah, exactly.
How could you possibly do that when we know the facts? We know how far back the problems of the banks began, and we know exactly what it took for this bank, central bank, to enforce the law and stop the leakage. How can you possibly blame what's happening on the current government?
What has the collapse of Heritage Bank got to do with law enforcement? You are talking about a bank which is solvent, and was solvent at the time it was being collapsed.
But also was violating regulations.
No. If you look at the statement issued by the Bank of Ghana, what they basically said as the grounds for the revocation of license of Heritage Bank was that Seydou Agongo, the main shareholder of the bank, was standing trial and had used monies which was the subjects, of that ongoing court litigation as part of the capital of the bank. And so to them, the man is not fit and proper to be a shareholder. And that was it. They revoked the license of the bank.
It was a bit more than that.
No. You see, because in that statement issued by the Bank of Ghana, they confirmed that Heritage Bank Limited was solvent. You understand? So it doesn't have anything to do with insolvency. Put that aside.
Insolvency is not the only reason why you close down a bank.
But
so they talked about trading with related parties and all of that business.
But trading with related parties is not sufficient grounds under the Bank of Ghana Act for the revocation of license of any bank, especially when that institution is not given a hearing, and especially when there is incontrovertible evidence suggesting that that position of the Bank of Ghana is not accurate. Well, look at, for example, Construction Bank. This is a financial institution which was awarded a perpetual license, banking license, by the Akufo-Addo government in 2017. That bank, Construction Bank, and Beach Bank were launched by the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, and the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr.
They were
Addison,
given provisional licenses by the previous government.
That is why we termed it provisional licenses, meaning that they were supposed to comply with certain requirements before they could qualify for perpetual licenses. This government came in and exercised a judgment that indeed they had met all the needed requirements and issued them with perpetual licenses. 1 year down the line, they come and tell you and I that we made an error.
That's not what they're saying.
No. What was the reason for collapsing Construction Bank and Beach Bank? They said they made false pretenses about their capital. That is it.
But those representations, those false representations are what led to you giving them a provisional, no you, I mean the previous government giving them a provisional license.
Provisional, my brother, is provisional.
Yes, but it was still given on false pretenses.
No. You give people a provisional license to ascertain the veracity of claims which have been made and to ensure that they comply with all the needed standards.
So they don't need to qualify for that provisional license. You simply give it to them.
You see, there are procedures that they need to go through to qualify for that, and they went through that. Okay, but what has been
under
revoked?
False pretenses.
No, what has been revoked is not the provisional license which was awarded these two financial institutions. What has been revoked and what is the subject of my argument is the final perpetual banking licenses awarded to these two financial institutions by the Akufo-Addo government.
So what you're saying is...
the government comes back to tell you that they secured these licenses through false pretenses about their capital adequacy.
So they should not have revoked the licenses.
What has that got to do with a mess or a problem which has been in existence for years?
So are you
sometimes
saying
we make some of these general statements. That is the argument we are making. We make
they
these
should not have revoked the licenses.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that they deserve no plaudits for fixing a problem they created in the first place.
But do they deserve criticism?
Exactly, because listen, if they had not
for fixing the problem,
if they had not given these financial institutions final banking licenses, I'm not sure that all the customers of these financial institutions would have done business with these institutions. It is not for anything that, it's not for nothing that banks and financial institutions, advertise their licenses from accredited institutions like the Bank of Ghana at their offices and branches.
So to clarify...
So that is the point we are making here. The collapse of microfinance companies, the collapse of the banks and all that is a direct result of the bad policies of this guy. And I give you just two more examples. Look at the collapse of Dr. Papa Kwesi Indium businesses, Gold Coast Security, Gold Coast Fund Management, and all that. They haven't
yet collapsed.
But they are now suffocating. The funds of customers are locked up. They cannot access their funds. Most of the branches have been closed down and all that. I'm sure today you've read in the news that he has sued government. Why has he sued government? It is because of government's liabilities to financial institutions belonging to Dr. Papa Kwesi Indium. Government awarded contracts to contractors. These contractors, they didn't go to the Eco banks and the Barclays banks and the Stanbic banks. They went to indigenous banks, the Unibanks, the GM banks, the UT banks and all that. Because these banks support indigenous businesses, they lended them money to fund these government projects. The roads have been built, the schools have been built. How many years down the line? These contractors have not been paid. And we are talking about a government which promised these contractors that it was going to pay them within its first 100 days. Today, for the first time in the history of this country, or let me say in my life as a human being, I wouldn't even say adult life, I have never seen contractors, road contractors, demonstrating like it is currently happening at the offices of the Ministry of Roads and Highways. You understand? And that reflects the deceitfulness and the insensitivity of the Akufo-Addo government. You promised contractors that you pay them within your first 100 days. Since you came into office, you have had access to about 210 billion. That is, if you look at loans that they have contracted, tax revenue, non-tax revenue, 210 billion. You owe contractors 3.6 billion. You can't pay that. And yet the CDD is telling you that in only 2.5 years, Ghana has lost a whopping 9.6 billion through corruption. And yet you owe these contractors 3.6 billion. You are not paying them.
That's not even the full amount. To clarify, that 9.6 billion is the amount of corruption, the value of corruption cases that the Corruption Watch program has identified. It's not even the total.
Wow. So it's a serious problem.
Let's clarify a couple of things, though. I mean, on this banking thing, then we wrap up and move on. Okay. So basically what you're saying is that the previous government gave the provisional licenses to some of these banks. Current government gave the final license. Current government should take responsibility for the problem because they were wrong to give the final license, but the previous government was right to give the provisional license. That's basically what you're saying.
Because the previous, you see, but that is just one aspect of the problem.
Yes, yes. I just wanted to clarify
the main problem. So let me clarify that and let me tell you what the main problem is. I said that in relation to Construction Bank and Beach Bank.
Yes.
That there is no way the Mahama administration can be blamed for that because under the Mahama administration, those two financial institutions were not issued final licenses. They were issued provisional licenses.
Should they have been given provisional licenses?
Yes, there is, because there is, as we speak now, there is no evidence that suggests that they made any false pretenses in securing provisional licenses. You understand? So we are talking about the perpetual licenses awarded them by the Bank of Ghana under the Akufo-Addo government, which they celebrated as an achievement. When Dr. Bawumia and Dr. Addison were launching these banks, they celebrated that as one of their achievements. You understand? But not just that, you know the biggest problem which has accounted for the financial mess, the financial cul-de-sac that this country finds itself in. You have a problem in your financial sectors, specifically with banks and rural banks, microfinance institutions, which has to do with bad corporate governance practices, bad risk assessment practices,
which are all historical, by the way.
Capital adequacy issues and all that, which didn't start today. President Kufuor had a choice. Under him, I'm sure there were financial institutions which were challenged. Was his approach that these institutions should be collapsed? President Mahama was confronted with a similar problem. He didn't do that because you know why? Government itself is part of the problem. The reason for the solvency and the liquidity challenges of most of these financial institutions is because of two things. Government's indebtedness to state-owned enterprises in the energy sector, because these state-owned enterprises also owe the banks. And two, government's indebtedness to contractors, government contractors. And that is why the Mahama administration introduced ESLA to clear the legacy debts in the energy sector, to free some fiscal space, some liquidity space for the banks and all that. So if you could, and let me make the point, that this government could have saved a lot of banks with liquidity support of about 5.6 billion, and yet chose to collapse 9 banks by spending 18 billion. So it has to do with the policy decisions, the choices that our leaders make. We believe that the financial crisis that we were confronted, or we have been confronted with over the years, could have been managed in a more appropriate manner, which would not have led to the thousands of job losses that we are currently seeing, and to the situation we currently find ourselves in, where the monies of several customers of these banks, the customers have been told your monies are secured, but their monies are only secured on paper. Write a check to Consolidated Bank Ghana today for 500,000 Ghana cedis. Your money, you have that money in your account, but they will tell you to go and come again. People are not having access to their, their own funds in their own accounts. That is what is affecting the rural banks. That is what has had a negative domino effect on several microfinance institutions. Right. So it has to do with a poor management of the program.
And I was going to say, just before we move on from banks, that you make this point of the government's indebtedness to the power sector and to contractors, which no doubt has some effect on this. But I wonder whether we can ascribe it all to that, bearing in mind that some of the banks, for example, Unibank was basically giving out loans to shareholders without recording it. I don't know what that has got to do with the power sector or contractors. And those irregularities amounted to some 3-point-something billion.
Yes.
That's a big chunk. I don't know if you can ascribe all of that.
And so the point is that in dealing with such an issue, where it is proven that directors or shareholders have acted ultra vires or have acted in an unlawful manner, The laws must be enforced, they must be arrested, they must be prosecuted, and they must be sanctioned in accordance with law.
But they did all this while your party was in government. You didn't enforce the law, you didn't sanction them.
The Bank of Ghana has a supervision department. I am aware that even under the former government, issues of bad corporate governance, third-party, third-party related transactions and all had been raised.
Yeah, the reports go way back.
But you see, you don't, like we say, you don't throw the baby with the bathwater.
But you did nothing whatsoever.
It is not true that we did nothing.
What did you do?
We had a choice. We had a choice. First of all, save the institutions, protect jobs, protect depositors' monies, so that later you can deal with directors, shareholders of these financial institutions.
So how did you save the institutions? What did you do to protect the jobs and protect the money? What did you do?
At least the President Mahama administration did not revoke the license of any bank on grounds of political expediency.
So you did
like
nothing?
The license of the license of Heritage Bank Limited has been revoked.
You're going away from the issue of irregularities.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking about.
I know that the supervision department of the Bank of Ghana was working on some of these things. I don't have details as to specific actions they took, on these matters. But what I know is that
we've seen the records. They wrote to them. That's what they did. They wrote letters.
And the odi or terem partem rule, a man cannot be judged on head. So what you're saying currently lays credence to the point I'm making, that queries were raised and these issues were being investigated. I am saying that, granted without admitting that some directors, some shareholders acted in an unlawful manner in a way that puts deposited money at risk. Those shareholders and directors, I believe, could have been dealt with. That is the position of the Coalition for Social Justice.
Right.
I know that some of all the cases are not the same. Some of them were a bad case, but others, Royal Bank, for example, look at GM Bank, which is now suffocating, now grumbling, going down, and all that. These are I don't believe that Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndiom has misappropriated deposited money. I don't believe that he has done anything untoward. He's suffering because government is not paying contractors he lended money to. So that is the bigger problem. The individual issues about directors and some shareholders who have acted in an unlawful manner can be looked at. The laws should be enforced. We will support that, but we are saying, you don't lie to us that, we are collapsing these banks, we are consolidating them, sorry. This decision will not lead to any job losses.
Right.
And a few weeks after that, 2,000 people are dismissed.
Very well.
That is fraudulent.
I'm told our time is up, but this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. Of course, Sammy Gyamfi is a communications officer for the NDC and one of the organizers of yesterday's demonstration.